Courage is not something you acquire from the outside world. It is not a medal, a title, or the approval of others. True courage arises from within, like a flame quietly burning inside the depths of your being. It is not always visible, nor is it loud or dramatic. Often it is subtle, almost imperceptible, manifesting in the choice to stand firm when the world around you feels unstable. This inner flame does not require validation. It exists because you acknowledge the necessity of confronting life's challenges with integrity and determination. It is this self-sustained energy that allows individuals to move forward even when fear and uncertainty dominate their environment. The internal flame of courage is intertwined with fear. To misunderstand courage as the absence of fear is to fundamentally misinterpret its nature. Fear is inevitable. It is the mind's signal that something important is at stake. Courage is not the denial of fear, but the deliberate act of moving forward despite it. When the mind is gripped by fear, the flame of courage is what illuminates the path, revealing the steps that must be taken even in the absence of certainty. Without this internal fire, fear would paralyze thought and action, leaving potential unrealized and opportunities forever lost to indecision. This flame is nourished by reflection, discipline, and self-knowledge. Courage is not impulsive. It is the result of understanding one's values, priorities, and responsibilities. When you know what you stand for, when your principles are clearly defined, courage naturally emerges as a force that guides decisions and actions. The inner flame is fueled every time you choose to face a difficult conversation, confront a personal flaw, or take responsibility for a challenge rather than avoiding it. Like a lamp that requires fuel to keep burning, courage requires continuous maintenance. Through honest self-assessment, deliberate effort, and repeated acts of bravery, no matter how small. Courage as an internal flame also possesses a transformative power. When it burns steadily, it changes not only the individual, but the environment around them. A person with courage becomes a living demonstration of possibility, showing that fear can be acknowledged yet not allowed to dictate life. This internal fire radiates outward in subtle ways, in the steadiness of one's voice, the decisiveness of one's actions, and the resilience to endure trials. Others may not always consciously recognize the courage within, but it has the power to inspire and influence, creating ripples that extend far beyond immediate circumstances. Finally, the internal flame of courage is eternal in the sense that it can survive any darkness. Life will inevitably bring moments when all external lights fail, when hope seems distant and the path forward is obscured. In those moments, the inner lamp of courage shines brightest, guiding the individual through adversity. It is the recognition that the world's chaos and suffering cannot extinguish the deliberate, cultivated fire inside a person who chooses to act despite fear. This inner flame, once ignited, becomes a lifelong companion, a source of strength that remains unwavering, illuminating the way through every darkness that life presents. Life is not a continuous procession of joy, comfort, or certainty. Darkness, uncertainty, suffering, loss, and chaos is an inevitable part of the human experience. No individual, no matter how privileged, disciplined, or talented, can escape the trials and shadows that life brings. To deny this is to build a fragile and unrealistic expectation of existence, one that collapses at the first encounter with difficulty. Understanding that darkness is unavoidable is the first step toward preparing oneself to face it with resilience. It is the acknowledgement that adversity is not an interruption of life, but a fundamental component of it, demanding both awareness and deliberate response. Darkness manifests in countless forms: the sudden loss of a loved one, the collapse of a career, the shattering of trust, or the slow erosion of personal motivation and meaning. It is rarely spectacular or dramatic in a cinematic sense. More often, it is quiet, creeping, and relentless. Yet, within this darkness lies the potential for growth. Like the night sky that reveals stars only when the sun has set, life's most profound insights and strengths are often visible only when we confront its shadows. The inevitability of darkness, therefore, is not merely a challenge to endure, but a necessary condition for depth, understanding, and transformation. The recognition of darkness compels responsibility. When we understand that difficulties are not anomalies but intrinsic to life, we stop blaming external forces and begin to examine our own responses. Darkness becomes a mirror reflecting our fears, weaknesses, and unresolved conflicts. To navigate it successfully requires courage, discipline, and honesty. One must confront uncomfortable truths about oneself, about the world, and about the fragility of human existence. In this sense, the inevitability of darkness is not a punishment. It is an invitation to confront reality as it is, to grow stronger, and to develop the internal resources necessary to endure and thrive. Moreover, darkness sharpens clarity and strengthens the inner flame of courage. Just as iron is tempered by fire, individuals are tempered by adversity. The inevitability of darkness ensures that no life is ever entirely sheltered, forcing one to cultivate resilience, persistence, and moral fortitude. It teaches lessons that comfort never can, the value of patience, the power of reflection, and the necessity of deliberate action. Without darkness, courage would remain theoretical, hope would lack weight, and gratitude would be shallow. It is in the crucible of inevitable suffering that the human spirit is tested and refined, proving that light and shadow are inseparably intertwined. Finally, accepting the inevitability of darkness allows us to navigate life with wisdom rather than denial. It shifts the focus from seeking an impossible permanence of comfort to mastering the capacity to endure, adapt, and illuminate one's path regardless of circumstances. Those who understand this principle are not naive optimists. They are the steadfast individuals who cultivate their internal flame precisely because they know night will come. Darkness becomes not a source of despair but a proving ground, a necessary contrast that gives meaning and direction to the light within. The inevitability of darkness, when embraced rather than resisted, transforms life's challenges into opportunities for courage, growth, and purpose. Confidence is often mistaken as a prerequisite for action, but in truth, it is the product of deliberate engagement with life's challenges. Many wait to feel ready, to feel fearless, or to feel fully capable before taking a step forward. But such readiness is largely an illusion. Real confidence emerges through the act of doing, not through endless preparation or self-assurance. Each decision to act in the face of uncertainty, each step taken despite fear, gradually builds the inner conviction that one is capable of navigating the complexities of existence. In this way, action is not only the engine of progress, but the forge in which authentic confidence is created. Taking action, particularly in the realm of personal growth, often requires stepping into discomfort. When you confront difficulties head-on, you encounter your limitations, doubts, and insecurities. These experiences can feel threatening or discouraging at first, but they are precisely the mechanism by which competence, and therefore confidence, is developed. By acting despite uncertainty, one gains a practical understanding of their abilities and boundaries, cultivating a form of courage rooted in experience. It is this courageous engagement with reality, rather than idle contemplation or overanalysis, that produces genuine self-assurance. Action also breaks the paralysis of overthinking. The mind tends to exaggerate potential threats, magnifying fear until it feels insurmountable. Confidence that relies solely on feeling safe or fully prepared will often never materialize, because life is inherently unpredictable. By initiating action, we test the assumptions and narratives constructed by our minds, revealing that many fears are exaggerated or unfounded. Action, then, is both corrective and liberating. It provides evidence of our own capacity, undermines irrational anxieties, and gradually replaces doubt with a grounded, practical confidence that is resistant to external chaos. Moreover, action builds momentum, which is crucial for sustaining confidence. Small, deliberate steps, whether in personal development, relationships, or professional endeavors, compound over time, reinforcing the belief in one's abilities. Every completed task, every challenge faced and overcome, fuels the inner flame of competence and self-efficacy. In this sense, confidence is not a static trait, but a dynamic outcome of continuous engagement with life's demands. It thrives not in isolation, but through persistent effort, disciplined action, and the willingness to face the unknown repeatedly. Finally, the principle that action precedes confidence is deeply empowering because it shifts the locus of control inward. Rather than waiting for external circumstances, permissions, or reassurances to provide the courage to act, individuals learn to generate their own internal momentum. Confidence becomes a consequence of initiative rather than a precondition for it. This understanding transforms life from a passive waiting room into a series of opportunities for growth, mastery, and self-realization. The act of doing, even imperfectly, ignites a feedback loop. Action breeds experience, experience breeds competence, and competence solidifies into unwavering confidence that can illuminate even the darkest paths. Courage is not born from circumstances. It is cultivated through the conscious acceptance of personal responsibility. To live courageously is to acknowledge that your choices, actions, and responses define the trajectory of your life. External conditions, whether favorable or adverse, will always fluctuate, but your willingness to take ownership of your decisions remains within your control. Responsibility is the soil in which courage grows. Without it, bravery is shallow, sporadic, and dependent on luck or external validation. When you consistently assume responsibility for yourself, your actions, and your outcomes, you forge a resilient inner strength that enables you to face life's challenges without hesitation. Taking personal responsibility requires the honest appraisal of one's limitations and failures. It is not enough to succeed when circumstances are convenient. True courage emerges when we confront our mistakes, weaknesses, and moral obligations, even when it is uncomfortable. By recognizing where you have fallen short and actively striving to improve, you cultivate integrity, a core component of courage. Responsibility transforms fear into purpose, because the act of ownership shifts focus from what might go wrong to what must be done. Courage, therefore, is inseparable from accountability. Each courageous act is grounded in the deliberate choice to answer for oneself, rather than deflect or avoid. Responsibility also provides a framework for meaningful action. Life is inherently complex, filled with competing demands, uncertainty, and moral ambiguity. Without taking responsibility, one becomes passive, drifting along with circumstances and reacting to external pressures. But when you consciously claim responsibility, you impose order on chaos, define your priorities, and create a pathway forward. This proactive engagement generates courage because it is rooted in purpose rather than impulse. The individual who shoulders responsibility understands that fear is inevitable, yet it does not paralyze them. They act because they recognize the necessity of their role in shaping outcomes and influencing both their own life and the lives of those around them. Moreover, personal responsibility strengthens resilience in the face of adversity. Life will inevitably challenge you with trials that test endurance, morality, and vision. By embracing responsibility, you no longer view setbacks as injustices or personal failings beyond your control. Instead, challenges become opportunities to exercise courage, adapt, and grow stronger. Each act of ownership reinforces the inner conviction that you can navigate difficulties, making courage a habitual response rather than a fleeting emotion. The disciplined assumption of responsibility transforms fear and uncertainty from obstacles into instruments for personal growth and empowerment. Finally, personal responsibility fuels courage because it fosters self-respect and autonomy. When you consistently take charge of your life, you develop confidence in your ability to face the unknown and persevere under pressure. You no longer wait for others to provide validation, protection, or guidance. Your courage is self-generated, arising from the recognition that you are the architect of your existence. This internal strength not only equips you to confront darkness and uncertainty, but also inspires those around you. Responsibility, in essence, converts the abstract potential of courage into a tangible, reliable force, a flame that burns steadily regardless of the storms that life inevitably brings. Courage is not merely a personal virtue. It has a profound ripple effect that extends beyond the individual. When someone acts courageously, especially in the face of adversity, it demonstrates to others that fear can be acknowledged without being allowed to dictate action. This demonstration is far more powerful than words or advice. It is the living proof that resilience, integrity, and determination are possible. By standing firm in the face of challenges, an individual becomes a model for others, showing that the inner flame of courage is not only attainable but contagious. Courage, in this sense, functions as both a personal compass and a beacon for those navigating their own uncertainties. The inspiration derived from courage is particularly potent because it resonates on a deeply emotional level. Observing someone confront fear and act decisively activates a recognition within ourselves that similar action is within our reach. Courage reminds us that our own potential is not defined by circumstance, but by the choices we make in response to it. It challenges the passive acceptance of life's difficulties and encourages proactive engagement. When others witness courage in action, it instills hope, motivates effort, and fosters a sense of shared human possibility, a collective recognition that adversity can be confronted, overcome, and transformed into growth. Courage also inspires others through the demonstration of moral and ethical strength. When individuals act in alignment with their values, even when it is costly or risky, it sets a standard for integrity that others can aspire to. People are naturally drawn to authenticity, and courageous acts rooted in principle resonate more deeply than success achieved through convenience or compromise. This kind of inspiration does not demand imitation, but instead awakens awareness. It allows others to see that it is possible to act rightly and decisively, even when the world pressures conformity or discourages deviation from the status quo. Courage, therefore, is both a personal shield and a moral compass for those who observe it. Furthermore, the influence of courage compounds over time. A single act of bravery can ignite confidence in others, encouraging them to confront their own fears, pursue their goals, or speak truths they had previously silenced. Communities, workplaces, and families are shaped by the cumulative effect of individual courage. When people witness repeated acts of steadfastness, it normalizes resilience and perseverance, gradually shifting collective attitudes from fear and hesitation to confidence and initiative. The courageous individual becomes a catalyst for transformation, turning personal integrity into a source of shared strength that enhances the capacity of others to face life's challenges. Finally, courage inspires because it demonstrates the possibility of thriving despite uncertainty and difficulty. Life is unpredictable, filled with trials that test endurance, patience, and moral clarity. Those who act courageously reveal that these trials are not insurmountable, that action, responsibility, and persistence are sufficient to navigate darkness. In doing so, they offer a vision of what is possible for others, an attainable example of resilience and self-mastery. Courage, when practiced consistently, transforms into a legacy that extends beyond the individual, shaping minds, attitudes, and behaviors, and igniting the inner flame of bravery in all who witness it.